The St Albans Psalter, also known as the Albani Psalter of the Psalter of Christina of Markyate, is an English illuminated manuscript, one of several psalters known to have been created at St Albans Abbey in the 12th century. It is widely considered to be one of the most important examples of English Romanesque book production. It is of almost unprecedented lavishness of decoration, with over 40 full-page miniatures, and contains a number of iconographic innovations that would endure throughout the Middle Ages. It also contains the earliest surviving example of French literature, the Chanson de St Alexis of Vie de St Alexis, and it was probably commissioned by an identifiable man and owned by an identifiable woman. Since the early 19th century it has been owned by the Church of St Gotthard, but is now stored and administered at the nearby Dom Bibliothek. A single leaf from the manuscript is at the Schnacken Museum, Cologne. One further leaf and one further cutting are missing from the volume. The whereabouts unknown. Contents. The manuscript as it survives in Hildesheim has 209 folios of vellum, which are numbered by a modern hand in Arabic numerals in the top right corner of the rectos, and there's an additional numbering of the miniatures at the bottom of the pages. A full page measures 27.6 by 18.4 centimeters. There are many signs that the pages have been trimmed down from their original size. The binding is of leather and medieval, although it was restored in modern times, perhaps the 1930s. The manuscript is composed of 5 physically separable parts: calendar and computistical material, 2 series of full-page miniatures, 3 a quire containing a miniature and text of the Chanson de St Alexis. Gregory the Great's defense of the use of images in Latin and French translation, 3 miniatures depicting the Gospel Emmaus story, a drawing of 2 battling knights with accompanying text, and a Beatus initial with accompanying text, IV, Psalms, Canticles, Litany, and Collects. V. A bifolium with 2 full-page miniatures depicting the martyrdom of St Alban and King David with musicians. Date and origin. Scholarly opinion differs on many of the details, but there is general agreement that the Psalter was created at St Albans Abbey between circa 1120 and circa 1145, during the abbacy of Geoffrey de Gormagoran, and that it was possibly owned by Christina of Markyate, anchoress and later prioress of Markyate, or at least associated with her at some point after her death. If she did indeed own it, it is not clear whether the manuscript was intended for her from the beginning, whether it was adapted for her while it was being made, or whether it became hers after its completion. Recent research remains divided on this issue. Additions were made to the manuscript at various times until after her death, which is recorded in the calendar. Details of production. Within the accepted c. 1120 c. 1145 date range, there is no firm scholarly consensus about the relative and absolute chronology of the creation of the 5 constituent parts. They are generally thought to be the work of at least 6 scribes and 4 artists in the volume, but there is disagreement about their identity, and who was responsible for what. Published opinions until the 1960s were mostly that the manuscript was made before c. 1125, or even before c. 1123. This was modified in the 1980s to the decade c. 1120 to 1130, while in the 1990s and 2000s several scholars have proposed dates in the 1130s. Attributions dating the manuscript to after 1145 or after 1155 have not gained general acceptance. The main units of text are the main part of the calendar and computistical material. 2 further feasts added to the calendar, a large number of feasts and obits added to the calendar, the outer bifolium of the first quire of the Psalms, the rest of the Psalms, Litany, etc. The verse written on the pasted-in initial to Psalm chapter 105. The rubrics added in annexed to most historiated initials. The obit of Roger the Hermit, added to the calendar. The texts of the choir containing the Chanson de St Alexis. The last three listed are often said to have been written by the same scribe, identified by some as Abbot Geoffrey himself, giving a total of 7 scribes. In addition, another 12th century scribe corrected the text of the Psalms. The main units of decoration are the calendar with labors of the months in roundels, and the signs of the zodiac. The full-page, fully painted prefatory miniatures containing the life of Christ in 37 miniatures, and one of St. Martin, preceded by 2 of Adam and Eve, and followed by one of King David. A diptych of 2 full-page miniatures depicting the martyrdom of St. Alban and King David with musicians. The Alexis choir, including the Psalm chapter 1 initial. The pasted-in Psalm chapter 105 initial. All the other historiated initials. The prefatory miniatures are usually said to be by the artist of the Alexis choir, the so-called Alexis master. The majority of the historiated initials are usually said to have been painted by 2 artists, one of whom was the artist of the calendar and the final diptych. Narrative cycle. The scenes shown are P17, Fall, Genesis chapter 3 verses 1 to 6, P18, Expulsion, Genesis chapter 4 verses 21 to 24, P19, Annunciation to Mary, Luke chapter 1 verses 28 to 35. P20, Visitation, Luke chapter 1 verses 39 to 56. P21, Nativity of Jesus in art, Luke chapter 2 verse 7. P22, Annunciation to shepherds, Luke chapter 2 verses 8 to 14. P23, Magi before Herod, Matthew chapter 2 verses 1 to 6. P24, Journey of Magi, Matthew chapter 2 verse 9. P25, Adoration of the Magi, Matthew chapter 2 verse 11. P26, Dream of Magi, Matthew chapter 2 verse 12. P27, Return of Magi, Matthew chapter 2 verse 12. P28, Presentation of Jesus at Temple, Luke chapter 2 verses 22 to 28. P29, Flight to Egypt, Matthew chapter 2 verse 14. P30, Massacre of the Innocents, Matthew chapter 2 verse 16 to 18. P31, Return from Egypt, Matthew chapter 2 verses 20 to 21. P32, Baptism of Christ, Luke chapter 3 verse 22, Matthew chapter 3 verses 13 to 17, Mark chapter 1 verses 9 to 11. P33, Temptation of Christ, First Temptation, Luke chapter 4 verses 3 to 4, Matthew chapter 4 verses 3 to 4. P34, Second Temptation, Luke chapter 4 verses 5 to 8, Matthew chapter 4 verses 5 to 7. P35, Third Temptation, Luke chapter 4 verses 9 to 12, Matthew chapter 4 verses 8 to 12. P36, Christ in the house of Simon the Pharisee, Luke chapter 7 verses 36 to 50. P37, Entry to Jerusalem, John chapter 12 verse 13, Luke chapter 19 verses 35 to 36. P38, Washing of Feet, John chapter 13 verses 8 to 9. P39, Agony in the Garden of Gethsemane, Christ with angel and chalice, Luke chapter 22 verses 39 to 45, Mark chapter 14 verses 32 to 34. P40, Gethsemane, Christ and sleeping apostles, Mark chapter 14 verses 37 to 42. P41, Last Supper, Warning of Peter's betrayal, Sop to Judas, John chapter 13 verses 21 to 27. P42, Betrayal of Christ, Matthew chapter 26 verses 47 to 52, Mark chapter 14 verses 43 to 48. p43, mocking, Mark chapter 14 verse 65, Luke chapter 22 verse 64, Mark chapter 15 verses 17 to 20, Matthew chapter 27 verses 28 to 29, p44, flagellation of Christ, John chapter 19 verse 1, Luke chapter 23 verse 16. p45, Pontius Pilate washes hands, Matthew chapter 27 verses 24 to 25, p46, Christ carrying the cross, Matthew chapter 27 verse 31, John chapter 19 verse 17. p47, descent from the cross, Matthew chapter 27 verses 57 to 59, Mark chapter 15 verses 43 to 46, Luke chapter 23 verses 50 to 53, p48, entombment of Christ, Matthew chapter 27 verse 30, Mark chapter 15 verse 46, Luke chapter 23 verse 53, John chapter 19 verses 38 to 40. p49, harrowing of hell, Gospel of Nicodemus, p50, three women at sepulchre, Matthew chapter 28 verses 1 to 7, Mark chapter 16 verses 1 to 7, Luke chapter 24 verses 1 to 10, p51, Mary Magdalene announces resurrection to apostles, John chapter 20 verse 18, Mark chapter 16 verses 9 to 10, p52, Christ appears to the apostles, and incredulity of Thomas, John chapter 20 verses 24 to 28. Luke chapter 24 verses 33 to 43, Mark chapter 16 verse 14. p53, St. Martin of Tours, dividing cloak and vision, Matthew chapter 25 verse 35 implied. p54, Ascension, Acts chapter 1 verses 9 to 11. p55, Pentecost, Acts chapter 2 verses 1 to 3. p56, King David as musician, pp 69 to 71, three scenes of the supper at Emmaus placed out of sequence.